Hello, thanks for having me. So I don't really have any conflicts or disclosures here, except that, you know, as you get older and older, and I know Paul probably feels this way, I want to do less and less for these patients. So once I've created enough complications, I'm not as excited about creating more. That being said, I do a lot of deformity surgery and a lot of big surgery, but when I see them in the office, I see a lot more in the office than I can do, and if I can help them with something smaller, that's what I'm trying to do. And I'll give you a little bit of some of my strategies. So probably the first thing is, this is a 53-year-old female, very active. She was referred for low back pain to us. Came in, treatment options, she's flat, she's got this curve. Well, it turned out she had 2 weeks of back pain, and prior to our appointment, it's already gone away. She works as a sheep farmer. We told her, you don't have to do anything. You know, you have a bad x-ray, but you don't have to do anything. So all deformity doesn't need to be corrected, and even patients symptomatic don't always need their deformity corrected. There are a couple situations that it's really important to be aware of, because people get deformity surgery for these two problems, and it's not a deformity. So if you have the pelvic incidence lumbar lordosis mismatched, and you have a decreased lordosis, but the pelvic tilt is normal, and there's no thoracic hypokyphosis. In other words, this patient's not trying to compensate. So there's one thing, is the deformity, and there's the compensation. Fixed deformity patients try to compensate, and they do that by increasing their pelvic tilt, decreasing the thoracic kyphosis. Lumbar stenosis patients also like to stand forward flex, and if you let them stand how they're comfortable, they'll have a decreased lumbar lordosis, but their pelvic tilt is normal. When you examine them in the clinic, you can have them stand up straight relatively easy. It may increase their buttock pain, but they can stand up straight, and all they need is a decompression. In fact, one of the things they'll say to you, not only is my leg pain gone, but now I can stand up straight. So beware of that patient not compensating. The other situation is if it's a hip flexion contracture. Sometimes these are secondary deformity, sometimes they're the primary source. So all deformity patients should have a Thomas test prior to surgery and as part of your assessment. Because it may very well be that this is either arthritic hip or ankylosed hip. And so a Thomas test is really critical to understand that. If you try to correct deformity and they have a fixed hip flexion contracture, you're gonna fail. This is just an example. This is a patient who's not quite a simple stenosis patient. He's 71, mild low back pain, but he's got a lot of bilateral leg, he describes as cramping. It sounds like neurogenic claudication. It's confounded by the fact that he's a progressive muscle wasting disorder, weakness and chronic foot drops from a myotonic dystrophy. In fact, his sister died of that eventually. So this is a guy that's kind of going downhill, but he's got a lot of cramping pain in his leg. He's got, you know, moderate to severe stenosis. And this guy, you can see from his alignment, has some deformity, flat back issues. He's not a good candidate for a big surgery. You know, under ideal circumstances, this is maybe a case that gets a multi-level fusion. All we did on him was a 3-level decompression. He's actually happy with how he is. We had no intent of helping his leg weakness. His goals are achieved. He still has some back pain, and we'll just watch that deformity and hope that in his lifetime it doesn't become a more significant issue. So the goals of adult deformity are axial pain relief. To do this, you have to achieve fusion. It's often multi-level, it's often long lever arms, and it's the correct sagittal balance. And hopefully by correcting the sagittal balance, you relieve the back pain. If that's the goal, then they're not candidates for short level constructs. Some of the goals are neurological pain relief. And neurological pain relief can often be dealt with segmental focal procedures. They may have central stenosis. It's foraminal stenosis that's getting them. It's generally not things like disc herniation. Okay, so short segment fusions are an option. And these are typically in very early deformities. So somebody who's got severe sagittal coronal imbalance, they're probably not a short segment fusion candidate. But almost all these patients started with kind of focal asymmetric collapse of their discs. And if they're in that phase, like this patient, you can handle this with some T-lifts, correct them in the sagittal coronal plane, address their stenosis, and do something short. You don't need a major T10 to the pelvis surgery. This works pretty well. Similarly to a patient like this who has a focal asymmetric collapse. This is the beginning of degenerative scoliosis. If you see this patient 10 years later, that's going to be a more significant degenerative scoli, but whether doing a focal procedure prevents it or not, I don't know, and I'll show you some data on that. But it is amenable to a focal procedure if they have unilateral foraminal stenosis. And you can address this with whatever you want, lateral interbody, T-lift, however you do it, with a focal procedure. People have tried to look at this, and the studies on this are not great. They aren't randomized prospective studies, but people have tried to look at some case series of short fusions. Most of them, as you see here, are smaller curves, 10 to 25 degrees, and they're talking in this paper about 1 to 2 level fusions, and these patients were all sagittally and coronally balanced. So those are the candidates. This paper had no comparison group, but reported good outcomes radiographically and clinically at 5 years, but they did note some progression of the upper instrument, of the level above the upper instrumented vertebrae, which you probably would expect. This is another paper that was a systematic review of some people that had short and long segments, and you can see the patient numbers are pretty large. What I did find interesting, the long segments, the complication rate was 17%. If I could get 17%, I might always do a long fusion. Mine are not 70. It might be flipped. It might be 71 would probably be a better number for me. So I think we have to take that with a grain of salt when I read that. They did note if you did longer corrections, you got better coronal and sagittal corrections. That makes sense. And they did have some tips if you're going to go short, is don't end at the rotary listhesis. End your upper vertebrae in a relatively horizontal vertebrae, and don't end at a kyphoster listhese segment. And all that's kind of intuitive, but those are the ones that did worse with short segments. Another paper that looked at it, this is just another case series with 3-year follow-up, short segment, 1 to 3 levels. You can see their corrections of curves weren't very good. That's not what they were trying to achieve here. But what they did find is 8 of their 47 patients eventually required a longer fusion, and that was within 3-year follow-up due to progression of the curve. They felt like those were typically patients that had the bigger curves to begin with. So the bigger curves may not be candidates. And then lastly, a paper that again looked retrospectively, 122 short and 75 longs. The short segments, it was much more frequent that they were dealing with severe radiculopathy. And that makes sense. Those are the candidates. Those are people with foraminal stenosis. You can help relieve their problem with a short segment. And so they had a greater percentage of curve correction with long fusions. Again, makes perfect sense. But all the other parameters were worse. The hospital stays were longer, home discharges were worse, revision surgeries were higher, all worse with the longer fusions. So, but these are biased selected patients. This is an example, a 78-year-old female, low back, bilateral leg pain. You can see she has a little lateral listhesis at 3-4, early degenerative scoliosis, a degenerative listhesis at 4-5. Is stenotic across mainly 3-4 and 4-5, and a short segment fusion will work for this patient. Will she progress over time and that cephalad level will become more scoliotic and require treatment? Maybe, but there's a good chance in her lifetime we'd never do anything. No further progression. The other group of patients that are candidates to handle focally are the fractional curves. And fractional curves are almost always addressed for foraminal stenosis radicular symptoms. I actually like this operation. This works well, particularly on our older patients who you're reluctant to do a corrective surgery but are in with a predominant complaint of radicular leg pain. It's almost always L4 or 5. This is a left L5 radiculopathy. That's the major complaint here. They recognize that they have back pain and deformity. They're not interested in a big surgery. You can do root blocks diagnostically. Sometimes it has enough treatment value you don't have to do anything, but certainly diagnostically it helps you tremendously. And then these people can be handled with a focal procedure. I like to do A-lifts on them because then I reestablish lumbar lordosis. I have a base for future fusions if I ever have to come back and do a long fusion. I start a lot of my long deformity surgeries with A-lifts at 5.1 or 4.5 to establish forward of the sacrum lordosis. And so I've already done it. So if I have to do a deformity, that surgery got a lot easier. You really have to jack it open. You can see how the osteophytes no longer touch on this. To do that, you need to go back and you need to release the posterior annulus. You don't want it to open like that. You want it to open more like an elevator parallel. To do that, you got to get a curette back in the end and free up the annulus like we talked about with disc arthroplasty earlier. So that way the posterior part jacks open as well. And when you put your graft in. So, remains balanced. There's no bridges burned here, and it's a good foundation for global procedures if they ever need to be done. Similarly, this is an 84-year-old. You see she has a spinal cord stimulator for back pain. Doesn't help her a lot. I haven't got a spinal cord stimulator yet, but I'm pretty sure I should have one. I think most of my patients have them. She has left L5 radicular pain, chronic back pain. She's not real interested in a big surgery, has some medical issues. This is a little different. So you can get foraminal stenosis in the concavity. This is a lateral listhesis with a sacralized L5 vertebrae and tension of the root on the opposite side. So when you first see this, you say, the symptoms seem to be opposite the concavity, but sometimes the root will get tensioned. And again, root blocks does better. Similarly, can have a surgery. If I'm doing something at 4.5 and I'm doing an A-lift, often I'm going to do 4.5 and 5.1 for the same reason that when I have to come back, the 5.1 level is easy to do. And so then when I come back, I've already done 2 levels and have a good foundation for a bigger surgery if I ever need to do it. So she still has back pain. We took her spinal cord stimulator out because she said it didn't work, but her leg pain's gone. So the fractional curve, it's usually 4.5 or 5.1. Sometimes it's L3, particularly if they have a lateral listhesis. It's because the curve doesn't have a way to come around. It has to end at the pelvis, so it tends to be a much more sharp angular curve and acute curve. And so the foramen have much bigger problems than the concavity of the main curve. You can get foraminal stenosis in the concavity of the upper lumbar curve, but it's worse in the fractional curve because it's so sharp and angular. And it's unable to kind of continue around the curve. So the pain's generally in the concavity. It can sometimes be in the convexity that I showed you, so don't get surprised if that happens. Most studies to look at this and look at how you handle the fractional curve are all part of big global surgeries. There's very little data on doing isolated procedures these are procedures for radiculopathy. There was one paper I kind of threw in there that actually looked at this. These were endoscopic decompressions, no fusion, and they had moderate results without even doing a fusion. I personally think jacking the foramen open, establishing a base is probably a better long-term surgery, but that's one of the few papers I was able to find. So in summary, there are situations, remember, when the deformity is not due to a fixed spine problem. Don't get fooled by that. You don't always need to address the entire radiographic deformity, address the patient's problem. I always start with the premise to do as little as possible to address the patient's problem, but as much as I need to get a lasting, meaningful result. Sometimes that means T2 to pelvis. Sometimes that means PSOs, but sometimes it means a one-level A-lift to address their radiculopathy. Short segment and focal procedures can be effective. You have to take the patient's overall health into account. These are often older patients, and remember, large surgeries have large complications. Thanks.